Glad to see you.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Okay, it's great to maybe we can so maybe it's very honor for us to see you, and it's very cool. You can, I don't know, take some experience. In this experience will help many Ukrainian veterans, and it's very.
Yeah, can you see me okay?
No, I don't see you.
Okay, hang on. I do have a camera.
No problem. We have 5 minutes to start. So
Figure out how to use it. Hang on a second here. Let's see. Oh man. I know I have, I have my kids show me this all the time and then I don't use it. Let's see. That's a video because I do have a camera. I just have to figure out how to turn it on. I wanted to show you the shirt we had made for our bike ride.
oh,
it's pretty cool. It's got Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. We support the Ukraine. I wanted to show you, but I got to get the camera on first.
Okay, no problem. We have.
I'll figure that out in a minute.
Today we have a real cool team from Ministry of Veteran Affairs of Ukraine. It's really a pleasure to present. We have a few minutes before we start. So,
yeah, I got your that link that you sent me from with all the military titles, and that I actually researched that as best I could in English. So I'll have some questions for you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I'm still working on the camera. I'm still working on the technology. All right, let me see. It's probably somewhere down here in the bottom. I'll figure it out as we're going along. I promise you, I'll get it.
Okay.
I'll get it figured out. What are we going to go over today? Do you have kind of an outline or?
Please again, repeat because.
Yeah, what are we going to go over today? Do you have an outline of what you'd like to cover, or is this
yes, we would like to listen about your experience this transformation, military transformation to civilian. I briefly remind about our meeting in USA and prepare some little presentation. So maybe we have a few questions about this experience and what we can use in Ukraine. Because we understand how many veterans need this help in future, will be in this future experience, yes, and what we can to implement about this in our project, yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Since when I presented to you, I've tried to kind of shorten that up a little bit. There was a lot of information, and probably not all of it would be, applicable to, veterans and military in Ukraine. But we'll go over that and we'll figure it out, and maybe I can shorten that up and share something else with you after the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hello. Probably.
Good morning.
Good morning. Probably we should introduce ourselves. Yeah. By the way, what is the time in Pittsburgh? It might be 8 o'clock in the morning.
It is 8 o'clock in the morning here. Is it 3 o'clock there?
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking this time for this early morning meeting with us. Okay.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the meeting with the team members of the Ministry of Veteran Affairs in Ukraine. Those actually, I think everybody is already here. Those who are working on this all-national program for veterans, for military veterans, it's a transition from military to civilian. Just imagine, after the war, we will have almost 5 million people.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it's against probably 39 million people. It's like all Ukrainian population. Just imagine. Wow. And when they come back, they need employment or some activity. They must be active. They must be self-sustainable. This is our purpose. And it's an all-national program. We are working all. and it's under our president's degree. So we are really serious about this. We are very much dedicated, and we are gathering all the best international experience, especially from practitioners like you. We'll start at your website, and believe me, we have a lot of questions towards you.
Okay.
Now we are working on the self-assessment, you know, this intake form, to being able to assess the qualifications, the skills of those who are going to participate in this. So we are very much interested in your experience. What works, what does not work, why, and what would you recommend? Probably this is in general.
I have different assessment forms I use depending on who I'm interviewing. At Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, I work with all veterans, but I've also worked as a contractor to the United States Veterans Administration, helping veterans with disabilities find employment. So we use different forms there. It's not, you know, if you don't have a disability, you don't need to gather as much information. If you have a disability or barrier, so I could share some forms with you.
Yeah, if you would
Happy
share,
to do that.
we would appreciate very much if you would share with us, and also not just forms, probably your comments. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What works? What doesn't work?
Okay. Yep. I have to learn a little bit more. I did. Alexandra did send me a link to your to some military titles and info. I have some questions about that, but I don't know a lot about your civilian economy. So I'll probably have to learn a little bit about that too, but I don't think that should be too big for me to learn. I just need to go through it and see what's going on. I'm still trying to figure out how to get my camera on.
Yeah. And also you feel free to ask questions also. And if you need probably some introductions about our economy. Because our program is going to cover active members.
Active military. Do you
Yeah,
have
members,
sorry.
some veterans, actually former veterans, and also people who actually left military because of disability, you know, this war disability. And we are planning now also, we are developing a sort of like pilot project. Pilot project it should cover, especially those with disabilities who actually has to return to leave military and be here in country. So we need to help them with employment, because we do not consider them as sort of like people. We consider them with a people with possibility, you know, with opportunity. This is our job, to give them opportunity to work and be able to help for themselves. I like your motto from it was like from service to success. Actually, we should borrow it.
I don't know if our executive director and our founder are on, but they could let you know if you can use that. I'm not sure if they're on. Are they on here this morning? They might be on the call here.
Yes.
So I am. This is Jack Leiden.
Hi, Jack. Hi, welcome to the team.
Thank you very much.
Okay, maybe I little bit briefly introduce our participant, because it's really cool team. Cool team from Ministry of Affairs of Ukraine, and a little team about our NGO. So first of all, I would like to present Lada Safonova, Deputy Head of the Patronage Service, Head of the Department of Advisor to the Minister, Maxim Kuchnir, General Director of the Directorate of Civil Identity and Veteran Development. He should join in a bit later. Serhiy Wojciuk, Head of the Expert Group of Educational Programs and Professional Adaptation, Nadia Adamenko, Deputy General Director of the Directorate, Head of the Expert Group for the Development of Information System and Veteran Electronic Service, Alona Skorzova, Head of the Expert Group on Veteran Development, Bashkatova Irina, state expert of the expert group of educational program and professional adaptation. Alexander Polypchuk, chief specialist of the strategic planning and institutional development expert group. Olena Petrova, project manager of the Office of Reform of the Cabinet of Minister of Ukraine, and also is the organization Peace with Harsh Veterans. It's Jack Lydon, executive director, Jack Wagner, founder, Jim Rossi, vocational rehabilitation consultant, career counselor, and practical specialist in the helping veterans, author of practical methods for transformation a military profession into civilian. And also Anna Reznichenko, our career guidance specialist, psychotherapist, recipient of the project How to Find the Job After Military Service, and me, Alexander Kuklyshin, as co-founder of veteran organization Green Stripe, and the project manager for some project for our veterans. So maybe I give the floor to Olena Petrova if you would like to say something, because you start, and so maybe you continue.
Alexander, thank you so much. I think I already said enough, you know, what we are doing and why we are very much interested in the best international experience, in the best international findings in this, and especially now because we are in the middle of creating this self-assessment tool. Because now I think it's one of our best tool, which is going to be delivered to and distributed to current military, to veterans, to their family online, you know, to cover as many as possible. That's why for us it's very important your experience of these intake forms. How you develop them, how you structure them, what questions and how many questions you are asking, what works or does not work. It's a sort of like people should score yourself against some statements, or it's like multiple or choice, or they should write themselves. And also should there be some mentors, some people who are going to guide them through answering those questions, or they are doing this independently. All of the details, actually, believe me, we are interested in details as much as possible. Thank you so much. And then, if you don't mind, we will be asking you questions after this session.
I'm still taking some notes, so go. I'm still writing notes. Okay.
Good morning, Jim.
Hey, morning, Jack. It's
Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you in Ukraine are safe and sound.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good morning.
Good morning. And is Jack on the call also, Jim?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
I had wanted to show them the shirt we had made for our fundraiser for the bike ride. I let Alexander know that we had donated 10% of the funds to Ukraine from our fundraiser. Maybe you could let them know a little bit about that, Jack, before we start.
Well, we are a nonprofit organization, so we're out there constantly trying to raise funds so we can help more veterans. But obviously, we're a military veteran organization, basically. And that veteran someone's phone is ringing. I hope that's not mine. We are helping veterans 100% of the time. And as a result of that, we felt a commitment to do something to help all of you. Now, it's a small commitment in the sense of how much we contributed, but our board approved taking 10% of the profits that we made in our annual fundraiser and giving those monies indirectly to all of you through a local worldwide nonprofit, Brothers Brother Foundation. And They have helped the people of Ukraine during these very difficult times in providing medical supplies. So we just felt very proud to be part of that. We know all of you. We've met some of you. We respect all of you. We want to help all of you. Our country wants to help you. We individually want to help you. And we want to help the veterans that you have in Ukraine, just as we want to do the same here in America. This is really a small world, and we believe in what you're doing. Our country did that about 250 years ago in terms of maintaining our democracy. And we are right there behind you in terms of supporting you in that effort.
Thank you so much.
And Jack Lydon or Jim Rossi may have some additional comments to that.
I think that the total, what was the total we raised there, Jack? 10%. Was it $7,200 that we ended up donating?
Yes, it was almost, it was somewhere around $77,500.
Okay. We just want to let you know that, hey, I brought my shirt with me. I don't have it on, but can you see that if I hold it up as to our shirt can you see that?
Yeah, 530, yes, right, for Ukraine, yeah.
Yes, it was very well received in our community. We had veteran riders, we had non-veteran riders, we had family riders. It was extremely well received, and I just wanted to let you know about it since I had let Alexandra know about it. And Elena, you mentioned maybe the different types of assessments that you're making and preparing. I don't know, maybe Jack Lydon, you could share the type of assessment we use, down at Pittsburgh Hires Veterans for an intake in general. Maybe that would be of some interest to them. And then maybe I'll share some information, or we'll share some information about what I typically do that's a little more in detail. Does that sound good to start?
Sure it does. And I would just add, we collaborate with other veteran organizations as best we can. And many organizations do different things. Pittsburgh Hires Veterans is exclusively a veteran organization that helps veterans find gainful employment, because we believe in the depths of our being that if you can help a veteran find a good job, you solve a lot of problems with that individual. So we're different from many other veteran organizations in that we're almost like a sniper in terms of how we help veterans. We zero in on helping them become gainfully employed in a wide variety of professions. And as you could imagine, our veterans come from all walks of life. So we have to be versatile in terms of how we help them.
But the question is, how do you identify which profession in civilian would fit those veterans? Why I'm asking? Because we will have different layers of veterans. Some of them are like professionals, yes, professional military professions. Some of them just like conscript. Some people joined military, probably they were some workers, or probably they did not have any professions. And then at the end of this war, they will need employment. The question will be how to identify actually which employment would fit them. Yeah, how to identify their skills, the aptitude, best. And also the question how to motivate them to participate, in this poll, in this questionnaire.
So this is Jack Lydon chiming in here. And Jim Rossi will address a lot of your specific questions there. We work with a lot of different veterans at Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, and it sounds like your focus is going to be on transitioning veterans. We work with veterans who have been out of the service for many years. We work with them who have been out for many months. And we also work with veterans who are preparing to leave military service. And the transitioning veterans are by far the most difficult for several reasons. Many of our transitioning veterans have never done anything but serve in the armed forces in a specialty, so they have no real understanding of what the competitive job market entails, how to volley for a job, what a resume is, and lots of challenges there. So yeah, the transitioning is difficult. Also, what we see in our American military is that many veterans who leave the service were successful, and they think they can step into the civilian world and be just as successful without any preparation. And I can vouch myself, struggled with that transition 20 years ago and made mistakes all along the way and managed to get through it. So helping the veterans transition is a challenge. You had mentioned motivation. We're struggling with the motivation of our workforce right now across the board in encouraging people about the importance of working. Jack Wagner often talks about how employment does more than provide income. Employment provides a purpose for your life. It provides an opportunity to serve the larger community. It provides a reason for getting up in the morning, and sharing that and trying to get that information across to veterans can often, or anybody who is unemployed, can often be difficult. Our initial assessment with veterans who step forward and say, we are interested in employment. The first thing that we're looking for is to understand what their employment goal is. Many times they don't actually have an employment goal. They don't know what direction they want to go in. And I'm going to let Jim speak to that issue because that is his specialty. But many veterans do come in and say, hey, you know, before I went in the service, this is what I did. I would like to go back to doing that same thing again. And that simplifies things because they also typically will have experience in that. So once we set the goal, we assess their readiness. How ready are they? Do they have the skills to do the job, or do they need training? Do they have the resume that they need to back up their experience?
Sorry for interruption. That you just mentioned setting the goal.
Yes.
Who and at which phase actually this goal is to be set?
That is the number one question that we address new incoming veterans with, because that drives everything else that we do. Either they know what their goal is and we start working toward that, or they don't know what their goal is and we need to figure that out.
It's like self-assessment completely, or there is some mentor about to help?
We don't often use a formal assessment to help veterans determine what their employment goal is. Now,
but you specified, you actually emphasize in your website it's like one-to-one consultation. So I assume that actually the process is like this: veterans visit your center or visit online, and then he has some like direct interlocutor, not like machine, a person. Yeah, there is a person, and it's like talk, face-to-face talk, or it's something different?
No, it is. You're correct. Our assessment in determining what the goal is, that's a joint effort between the counselor and the veteran. And they walk through that and talk through it until we have identified what we refer to as a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's realistic, and we set a time frame. We want everybody involved in the effort in moving forward. Once the goal is set, then we can assess how ready they are to achieve that goal. What do they need to support them? And this works from two sides, really. One is the technical abilities. They have the skills to do the job. Jack, did you have something there?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. They have the skills to do the job, or they don't, and we have to acquire them. But secondly, the veteran also has to have job seeking skills. And we look at these things as resume writing, interviewing skills, job search skills, to be able to get online and search for employment that matches their characteristics. And then to just the skill to actually apply to a job successfully. So these are the job seeking skills versus the technical skills they'll need once they get the job. And it occurs to me that I might be speaking too fast. Am I doing okay for everybody to pick up what I'm saying? Do I need to slow down my speech?
Oh, it's okay.
No, everything is okay. No worries.
Okay, I'm sorry if I ramble on a bit. And something else that was mentioned earlier is the motivation. And this is one of the things that we find is so critical to assess on the front end through discussion and requesting commitment from the veteran that they are going to move forward. They're going to work with us. We don't want them. Oftentimes we find that we want the veteran to get a job more than they want to get a job. And we really strive to get up front on that and encourage the veteran, determine just how motivated the veteran is toward employment, because we can't get the job for them. We help them to be successful. Questions on any of that? I know that was a lot right off the bat.
Yeah, I have a question. Which methods do you use to figure out all these questions? It's like speaking, or it's some special coaching questions, or it's some, I don't know, guidance that you use for this place of work?
These are all discussion questions. It's,
Okay.
yeah. For instance, our employment specialist will discuss what the veteran's goal for employment is with them and help them to clarify in their own mind what that goal is, and then document it within our record keeping system. Once that's done, we consider that to be step one. Until the veteran can identify what their goal is, we really can't move forward with them. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you understand that veteran doesn't have this goal, for example, his goal to achieve, I don't know, to achieve attendance or something like that, you understand that he hasn't any career goals. What do you do in this way?
Then we often will refer over to Jim, who is the vocational counselor, who can dig into that a little further. Jim, do you want to pick it up right there?
Yeah. So that often happens where just exactly what you're saying. Couple scenarios. You do something in the military and you don't want to do that when you leave the military.
Yeah.
Or you really have done only one job in the military. She mentioned you have professional officers. I'm assuming those are people that remain in the military for a regular full-time career. Then you said you have conscripts. What's a conscript? Is that just somebody that comes into military service for a certain amount of time and then leaves? Is that what that is?
In Ukraine, yes, for sure. It's usually conscript. It's for 2 years. Yeah, no, it depends. It depends on the troop, or the troop of the troops. But now, because of the war, no, you see, so everybody.
So they're in there. Okay,
Yeah,
so
for us,
conscripts.
like for us, we have two missions. First, it's like after war, immediately after war, to serve those who actually leave military after the war and they are coming home, they are returning home.
Mhm.
And the second mission, it will be for future, for all active military. And we are planning to start this transition probably 1 year in advance, actually. This is a plan, to prepare people in service. It's like 1 year in advance, and then 1 year after the military. No, that will be after the war. But for now, it's a short term. We expect it like to be short term. It's
Okay.
like those 5 million people coming home, and they need some mass strategy. This is what we are planning for, how to serve them all together. because we understand that it's like a little bit ambiguous. On the one hand, it should be one-to-one, it's like it should be individual. At the same time, we have this like mass production. So how to achieve, those, how to how to target those two missions,
Maybe from what I'm hearing you say, you have a lot of people and not a lot of people to serve them. You have a lot of veterans or military. So to answer her question and your question, maybe some type of self-assessment form. I use them in my practice, and I will sometimes use them at Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. So I consult at Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. I have a voc rehab practice I've been in for 25 years. So I use a lot of different forms. I don't always use the same forms, but particularly to answer her question up there about the skills, it depends on the document that Alexandra sent me had a description. I actually looked some of those up and translated them to kind of see what different types of positions were. I looked at the officers and I looked at some of the things they do. That is where I would look for somebody coming out of the military to see what kind of skills they have. For example, one of the ones I pulled up was somebody who actually works with missiles and weapons and rockets. So I would want to see those kind of skills. If they use those particular skills in the military and now are leaving, maybe there's civilian employers that deal with that type of stuff, maybe work in armory or weaponry, and that person has those skills because they were trained to do it in the military. They did it in the military. The matter is, if that's their goal, then we have to look at their skills. That particular document, Alexandra, that you sent me, there were like titles and codes and different levels. I looked them up as to who was an officer and things of that nature.
I
Do
will
you have like a description, like your military, do you have a description of what each of those positions is? That's where I would start to see what someone's skills are, to actually read the description of what they do. And if they're an officer, they're obviously got leadership and commander skills. You have to add that in. But you have to look at the positions. Like what we do here in the US is very similar to what he gave me. We have a military, we call it military occupational specialties.
Yeah.
And we have, four branches there. We have the Army, the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force, and they all have different specialty codes. It's a code number, very similar to the document that Alexandra gave me. It has codes in there. We can look those codes up and get a description of what the person did in the service. Then we can see if that is if their goal is, hey, I want to do what I did in the service in the civilian sector, then we can take those codes. We have a way to do it here, match the military codes to civilian codes. So there is a way to do it. I don't know if there's a way to do that in Ukraine, but that's the first thing I would do for someone that has a vocational goal or knows what they want to do. If they do not know what they want to do, as Jack mentioned, you can do it a couple of ways. One, I interview them and ask them specific questions. I also ask them about any interests they might have, any abilities they might have. And we have access, our veterans here in the United States, we have access to a test called the Career Scope. It may be available in Ukraine. I'll have to check this out or see what kind of test you have. But it's a simple test that the person takes, and it addresses their aptitudes and ability to do something. I have mechanical skills, I have verbal skills, I'm good with a computer. So it kind of gives you it gives the person assessment of what they're good at. And there's also a section on interest, what they're interested in. And we can match those two together and give them information to help them develop a vocational goal. So we use different types of tools. It's either, we can talk to them, we can look at what they did in the military, as Jack had mentioned. Some of them, and you mentioned that some of the conscripts and people volunteer and come out of the service, so they might be going in and going out. They've got civilian experience. We look at that civilian experience too. We look at education. Something in their education might suggest what they can do. So I kind of categorize that. And I'll be happy to share the type of form I use and the types of questions I ask. That might help you to get an understanding. I think that's what you're asking. Did I answer that question okay? Is that what you were
Yeah,
asking?
James, we would appreciate actually if you would send to us all those forms, and that actually, that career scope test aptitude. Could you please also forward the link to that test?
I will do that. I think it's an international, the VA uses it here, but I also use it in private practice, and it's administered by I'll get you the information and the contact information for them, and they could tell you whether or not they have a version that would work. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
James, and I have also one more question. What method did you use to make this list of specialties as we see now on the desktop? Yeah, like, for example, if you were, I don't know, you were using weapons, you can be in a, you can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 occupation. What method do you use to make this form and this, I don't know, list of occupation?
I'll show you the forms that I use. A lot of it's done from kind of my training as a voc rehab counselor.
No, I mean not the forms. I mean, which method do you use to make this list of job? For example, you
mean
put,
once
like,
we know once we know their goal?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
so
yep.
I see. So once we know their goal, we have job civilian. That's what I was mentioning in the beginning to Elena, and then asked her. We have civilian job, just like the military. You have those military job classifications with the description. We have civilian the same way. So once we find that goal, whether we do it through an interview or testing, we can look up those civilian occupations and provide information to them about what education you need, where you find a job, what kind of training. And we actually, that career scope test will actually identify occupations for you and provide you with that information. It'll actually say, here's some occupations you can consider. So we have a whole system. Is that like a whole job classification system? It's called the ONET, O-N-E-T.
Oh yeah, I know this.
You know about the ONET? Okay,
yes,
so
of course.
there's a method on there. Actually, I'm going to be doing a presentation on it to some student veterans, but there's a method, and I'll share the presentation with you, that there's a method we use to take their MOS, their military occupational specialty, same as you would have, and we can actually look up jobs in our civilian economy and show them how their skills transition and put some jobs together for them. I'll share that with you. I don't know if we can do that.
Method, yeah?
I don't know if it would apply the same way. Do you have like civilian job classifications, like that document?
Yeah, but it's
Okay,
not so good
that's what I
that.
would probably help me to look at something like that to see, because I tried to look that up when I presented to your group that came here to Pittsburgh about 3 years ago, and I had difficulty finding a list of occupations or what the main, maybe you could tell me what the main occupations are, and maybe I could help you understand how those translate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the main question, which method do you use to find occupation in civil life for this military occupation? I mean, you use, for example, John Holland method.
Yep.
You use other one.
Right. You know, the John Holland methods, the interest, I've been using that for years, the self-directed search, we use that test, but in the ONET, that thing we were just talking about, the ONET, in the actual occupations you find, the John Holland ONET, the John Holland codes are actually in there. So that's one way. That's one way we can develop an occupation by interest using those codes. So we have all kinds of search methodologies here available, and I don't know if you have the same there.
Okay, so you make it like for each person individually. But you have this list of work as a list of jobs, as I see on the screen, for example. I don't know if how did you make this?
Oh, how did I make that? Okay, so if you want to go back to that. We used to have a publication before the ONET called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not, but it was published by our Department of Labor. They started the book back in the early teens of this of the 1915, I think 1917 might have been the first publication. And what that book did was they actually had individuals go out and examine jobs as they existed in the economy, see what the person did, what the skills were, what the education were, and they prepared short summaries of those jobs.
Okay.
That's what's on that presentation screen. And up until probably maybe within the last couple years, the ONET that I'm talking about, it did not have that capability to transition military skills. They just didn't do it. And now that's been brought more up to date. So I think that's a lot more practical. But on that presentation, what I did was I looked at a specific military occupation. And there's codes on there. It says work field, or I don't remember what the other ones were. But those actual work fields, it's the same thing. You could take the work field from the military and put it into a work field, just like the Holland codes. You match them up in a civilian, and that's how I got occupations. It was just a little bit older of a methodology. The book, the DOT dictionary, hasn't been published since 1991. The nice thing about the book was it did military occupations too. And the ONET really doesn't do much with military occupation. So when I presented on that, that seemed to be the best way to display what I was trying to show in the closest crosswalk. I'll give you the presentation I'm going to be doing here. Yeah, this thing right here, sample walk. See that work field code 121?
Yeah.
That corresponds. So you could open up the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, look up this code, and then you could develop occupations. It was just a way of taking military to civilian using that particular publication.
But can you show me if it's possible and okay to show in a net how you make it? Because, for example, I Google now on net.
Okay.
I put in the occupation like tankman, for example. Yeah. And I need to find.
Maybe what you could do is maybe you could give me some occupations or some military occupations that you
Tankman.
typically encounter, and then maybe I could kind of show you how to do that. Would that be
Yeah.
okay?
For example, tankman. It's the first word I have in my mind.
Which one is it?
Tankman.
Tankman. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the? I'll look at and Alexandra, maybe you could share with me, or you could share
Yeah,
with
I would
me
like to share about
what that person does in the military.
Okay, do you see the presentation for now in Zoom?
Oh yeah, the one that I gave you before. Yeah.
Before
yeah.
it's before. And now I would like to share Ukrainian specification. A minute, please. Minute.
Yes.
Minute. For example, do you see it's some hour in armor force specialization for army? Do you so?
Yeah, right. Okay, I see what you have on the screen.
We have some codes. So, for example, in USA.
So now, is this a description of what the person does in the service, or what's those codes there on the left?
Ukrainian or USA code do you need?
Oh, okay. So, okay, so under each of these, let me see. Okay. So what's under each of these, like under these sections? Is that a description of a particular military position?
Yes.
Okay, and is this the one you mentioned, the tank man? Is that the one that this is?
It could be, for example.
Okay, okay. What
Hey,
are those?
Can I, excuse
go
me, I'm having some thoughts here, and I'm wondering if I could share my screen with y'all. Will that be okay?
Yes.
My screen sharing is disabled. Another option is I can point you toward a website if someone else can share this screen.
Yes, of course. can you share maybe some link,
Yes, I'm gonna paste it into the chat.
or you can?
Okay, the link is in the chat, and this website is called mynextmove.org/vets. And Tim and I were just working with this recently, preparing to present to a group of college students on how they can help determine what their next move is going to be. Did you, do you see that link within the chat?
Yes.
Yes.
The last at the bottom.
Now, if you open that link and put it on the screen, we can kind of walk through this because I think this is going to answer questions. Very good. I see that.
Do you
So-
see the screens?
Yeah, I see it on the screen. On the right side of the screen, find careers like your military job.
Yeah. But
Let's go
which-
pursue the tank man position. Please select branch Army.
Yeah, but which method do you use to make this list of occupation? What's the
Which-
basic? How you switch? How you find the jobs for this tank man?
Let's
It
look
should
at
be
this.
some-
Yeah, let's look at this.
We'll show you.
Whoever is operating the screen, can you select Army from the branch?
Yeah, I understand. I've checked it. I mean, but someone made this database of occupations. They
Yes.
use some. They
I
use
would
some
suggest you-
methods.
Yes, I don't know who built this and how much effort they put into it, but I don't see why you can't just use it. It's publicly available.
Mhm.
I thought that we need to make ourselves like this database. That's why I'm asking you about the method. Which method did you use to make this database?
Okay, so we did not make this database. We used
I
this
see.
database.
Okay, thank you so much. I understand. Sorry
Okay.
for a lot of questions.
That's fine.
Okay, just and that aptitude, I would like to ask the questions about that word aptitude. Does it include only technical ability or psychological ability as well?
Aptitude is defined as the ability to perform some type of work based on experience, education, life experience. It can be a combination of anything. That's what an aptitude is.
Yeah,
And an aptitude is really when you test someone's aptitudes, you're typically looking at their ability to learn. Typical things would be numerical, mechanical, verbal. They have a whole listing of them.
But how
And
about mental health? We're talking about like psychological. For example, a person has some stress, the person cannot perform this job because of some temporality. I'm not talking about mental health illness, but just stress, depression, actually.
maybe PTSD, perhaps they're
Yeah.
suffering from
Really,
PTSD. Well,
PTSD.
that's where you have to take so let me address that separately. That's more of a vocational rehab thing. If you, first of all, if you define some goals for them and you have the actual occupation, you want to see what the requirements are. Here in the United States, we can look up things like physical demands, mental demands, things of that nature. We have the access, that thing that Jack just showed you, defined a job, similar to your military skills. That site has a whole bunch of different applications. And when I say that, what I mean is when you find some occupations for the person and your question is, okay, I've got some mental stress or PTSD, you have to address that individually, like what causes that mental stress? What situations are they exposed to that? I'll just give you an example. A lot of people that tell me they have PTSD or mental, they don't like to work around people. They like to work in their own environment, do that. So when we're looking at an occupation for them, we don't maybe want to focus on an occupation that involves a lot of contact, verbal, answering questions, communications. Maybe they'd be good working in a machine shop. Maybe they would be good being a programmer on a machine. Maybe that, do you understand what I'm saying? You have to first develop the occupation and then see what the barriers are to do that. we also, in this country, we make reasonable accommodations. Many times, I'll have an individual wants to do a certain job and maybe they can't work around people, we'll help them get on an off shift. So there's different techniques you can use. You have to get that information from the person. What situations cause them stress? Do they have a physical disability? They might have a really good vocational goal and the physical demands prevent them from doing that. So you have to see first what their goal is before you can address those issues. That'll really make a list of all these mental conditions, and then you shouldn't do that because that would exclude a lot of people from doing certain types of jobs. Does that make sense?
So as I understood, the phase number one, it's a professional. Yeah. So we're starting from professional aptitude and then we'll start from physical.
Right. If they've got some barriers.
Exactly.
Many of our military, as Jack had mentioned, we get people from all branches, all levels. Some of them we have in this country a number of veterans that have service-connected disabilities, and you have to look at those, and you don't want to put them in a situation where it's going to typically aggravate their condition or cause them to leave that work. So you've got to examine the job pretty closely and see what fits for them. But again, you just can't do it in a spectrum of they have mental health or mental stress. You've got to look at what their vocational goals are. And that's where somebody like myself, there's plenty of voc rehab counselors, would help somebody pick a realistic goal and how to sort of fit in to that situation to not aggravate, any of their physical or mental conditions.
And if I could add to Jim and Jack, and as all of you probably know by now, my name's Jack also, so call me JW and call Jack Jack. But one of the critical components of a person and their future is what they want to do. What general category in life appeals to them the most? All of you are in a country that is going through a tremendous change to a point where you're going to have to rebuild your country. There's no doubt. There may be a significant number of jobs in construction in Ukraine. Hopefully when the war is over, and hopefully that will occur in the near future. You may have veterans that simply fit into the category of they want to help people, because in essence, that's what they're doing in the military. They're helping their country. So they may want to be a police officer. They may want to be a firefighter, a paramedic, a nurse, working in the health industry. I'm sure there's going to be a large number of jobs, the same as construction, same as infrastructure, and exposing them to be able to think through the wide variety of occupations that will be available, hopefully relatively soon in Ukraine, is what's important to get them into a general category of interest. And once you can get them into that general category, you'll know some potential occupations that will interest them. I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the infantry. There's nothing I did in the Marine Corps that fit well for civilian life, but I knew I wanted to help people. And that was my general category of looking at a wide variety of positions of interest. And I ended up being a safety engineer, which led to other positions in life. So don't think we need, don't convince yourself that we need to come up with the absolute solution for every veteran in terms of their job. But general categories, they will know individually pretty much what kind of work they want to do in life. And then we kind of help them develop choices. So, but we have to be realistic in terms of the kinds of jobs that will be available, are available today, and will be in the near future. And not just the near future, but probably over the next decade or two.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, so just. And the question is about their families. Are their families involved in also your consultations in communication, or you work only exclusively with veterans, but not with their families? Because we are planning to start like holistic approach also with their nearest and dearest, with their dependents, actually. What is your experience in this?
Yeah, we work with veterans, we work with guards and reservemen, we work with transitioning military, and we also work alongside their spouses as they seek employment.
Okay. So
yeah.
also for their spouses.
Yeah, we'll also go as far as to help other dependents if they are working towards supporting the household income. Yeah, we're all about supporting the veteran household rather than just the veteran themselves. And that sounds like what you're doing also.
Yeah, this is household. Okay, and also it's interesting because you are very respectful, you are quite large organization. And I think it's over 1,000 organizations like yours in the United States. But how are you structured against this VA governmental organization, actually? What are the rules? How do you separate roles, responsibilities, how it works? Because now we are also at the point to build this strategy. Yeah, and we need to structure, to make this hierarchy. We're not probably hierarchy. We need to make sort of like organogram. What's your advice? What works, doesn't work?
Well, we are a nonprofit organization, and as you probably know, the government has a whole section of helping veterans called the Veterans Administration of the federal government.
VA, yeah.
Yeah, the VA. And there's also organizations at the local and the state level. But our organization was started as a nonprofit organization with an independent board of directors of 9 people, of which the far majority were prominent people in the military that have good connections with civilian life. So we are very realistic in terms of the people that put together this nonprofit and the people that work there. Jack Lydon is our executive director. He has considerable veteran experience and real life employment experience. Jim Rossi is a licensed vocational rehabilitation counselor. He has dealt with veterans in a multitude of different situations. So we are small. We are a small nonprofit focused mainly in the Pittsburgh region, which is Pennsylvania, the state. And we're very flexible because we don't fall under guidelines of government. And we love the independence of being a nonprofit. Now, I don't know how all of you function in Ukraine, but we have far greater flexibility because we're a nonprofit and not a government organization.
Actually, all your services are free for veterans, correct?
Free for the veteran and free for the employer. So that creates another challenge for us in terms of how we function, where we get our resources. But fortunately for us, there are a number of entities, including foundations, corporations, and individuals that understand that our mission is a very valuable mission for our country. And as a result of that, we get the support we need to do our job. Sometimes from government also, but not much from government, very little.
Do you use some governmental recommendations, probably some, I don't know, some guidance which the government shares with you, so you are all in compliance, or? Yeah,
there's not many compliance issues with us except following the a nonprofit can do and can't do according to the law. And so, but what we like about being a nonprofit is that we set our own standards 90% of the time.
And how do you compare your standards and the services veterans receive from the government? Actually, yours are higher, or how would you rate those level of services, quality of services, or is it difficult to say?
And maybe Jack Lydon would like to jump in here, because he worked for the VA for a number of years, but I really believe what we do, government doesn't do. Or we would not be in existence. And so there's a void in America when it comes to helping veterans find gainful employment. And again, the reason why we were created 6-7 years ago, and we continue to prove the need for this kind of service in America, which I'm sure will be the case with all of you in Ukraine, if not now, certainly in the near future. Jack, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I sure will. So I have worked for the federal government in the veteran employment world, and I've also worked for our state government in the same field. And what we see is that each entity, each organizational level finds their own niche. The VA, federal government, works with veterans who have significant barriers to employment driven by their military service. So, and when I say driven by service, it can even be a secondary cause. For instance, it might be addiction issues stemming from some of their experiences. And so a lot of case management type assistance, I guess is an easy way to say that. Detailed oversight, structured individual employment planning, kind of along the lines of what Jim does with vocational resources, but on a much larger scale. At the state level, the Department of Labor funds a couple of veteran positions, several in each state, that look toward veteran employment. But they are very restricted in the veterans that they can work with. And let me drop back to the federal. The federal VA is also very restrictive in the veterans that they can work with. You have to prove that you're an eligible veteran to get assistance. At the state level, you also have to prove that you're an eligible veteran, and there are limitations. For instance, they won't work with a veteran unless they are making less money than 2 times the unemployment or the poverty rate, and different various rules. And then that places Pittsburgh Hires Veterans in the position where we work with all others. Everyone who doesn't qualify and meet expectations of the other organizations are welcome in our doors. We don't limit anybody. If you're a veteran, if you've served, you're good to go. If you have a dishonorable discharge, no one else will work with you, but Pittsburgh Hires Veterans will. We're all about helping the veteran and being non-judgmental, really, and their families, of course. So I think the point I'm making is that in the hierarchy, everyone kind of finds their niche. And a lot of the niches are driven by funding. Now, I will throw something out there also in that we have an organization in the southwestern Pennsylvania area, in the Pittsburgh area, that is a central coordinator of benefits. And it's called PA Serves. And what it is it's a group of different service providers. There's employment, there's physical, there's medical, there is food services, housing services, all rolled in under one umbrella that veterans can be referred into and receive the full range of referrals for services that they require.
Referred by whom? By who refers them there?
I can refer them there. If a veteran comes in and says, hey, I need a job, but I also need housing and food. Obviously, housing and food are much more important immediately than the job. And we can register them in the system and make direct referrals to other organizations who serve those purposes. I feel that that's probably a little bit off of the topic that we're discussing here, but it's very important when you're looking at the hierarchy of who does what to recognize that it's a lot of independent organizations working together to support the veteran population.
It does. Yeah, it is. It is very important.
It's kind of a free market approach to veteran services, quite frankly.
Yeah, well said, Jack.
Thank you.
And one more question. Sometimes it looks a bit challenging to convince, in Ukraine, for example, to convince a potential employer to hire a veteran because of some prejudices. You know what I mean. No, some people are not are reluctant. Yeah, are reluctant to hire veterans. So I don't know whether it exists in the United States or not. So what strategy do you apply to convince a potential employer to hire a veteran, for example?
First and foremost, what you say to every employer is, it's my understanding that you're a veteran-friendly employer. And I would challenge any employer to say no. If they do say no, they are un-American and un-Ukraine. In other words, they don't support their country. And for anyone to put their hand up and put their life on the line for their country, at a minimum, when they complete that service, they deserve the opportunity of employment. Employment by the country they served, not necessarily the country itself, but companies and employers that operate within that system. So sometimes employers need to be challenged in America also. And we don't hesitate to challenge them by simply saying that your company, your operation would not exist if not for the people who fought to have the government and the democracy that we have. So sometimes employers need to be reminded of that, not only in terms of the availability of a job, but receiving a just pay. So I would be very bold with all of you towards any entity in your country about the importance of them doing their duty in terms of serving the people who gave them the ability to function. And that is in essence what it's all about.
Yeah, thanks. And
I'm sorry, Olena, I don't mean to cut you off, but I would like to kind of tag on to what Jack Wagner just spoke about. He's right on the mark with his comments there. I find myself regularly in contact with employers. And one of the things that we actually have going for us in the United States is the fact that we have many job openings that aren't filled. I look at every employer as needing employees, and 99% of the time that is correct. Every employer is hiring. So that makes it a bit simpler to get them to consider veterans. But I'm very aggressive with sharing veterans in a positive light. For instance, almost every email I send out to employers, the subject line is hire a leader, hire a veteran. And they can quickly begin to recognize that these aren't high school graduates or juniors in college that are looking for a part-time job. These are people that are out there, they're serious about it, they've served their country, and they're ready to move forward. And that's the message that we send to employers is we're not playing games. You're not hiring these people for pennies. These people who have pledged to sacrifice their lives on the altar of their country, they have survived the battle, and now they're ready to serve in a new way, and that is to build the country back up. And they can't be treated like just unskilled labor. We need to take care of them and use those skills that they bring back with them. And I hope that makes some kind of sense there.
Right, and it does, Jack. And there's no better people to lead rebuilding of your country than your veterans and the families of veterans who have suffered and understand what their family member has gone through. That tankman that we talked about earlier, keep in mind that individual has a skill set that the average person in Ukraine does not. They work as a team. They can they understand leadership. They can take control of a situation. They do take control of life and death situations almost every day. They have made major decisions that some companies, CEOs have never been faced with. So the individual grunt, the individual infantry person, the officer, every phase of the military, those individuals have considerable life experiences that have put them in critical positions to make the most difficult decisions of their life. And they want to do that as an employee and part of a working environment. And they will add to that working environment.
In terms of upskilling, for example, if the employer says he or she is not quite qualified or enough qualified to my level, and this person needs some upskilling trainings, who provides that upskilling, who provides this retraining? Do you provide, or who, how?
Say that one more time, please.
For example, the employer, you are addressing says, okay, hi, I like this guy, but he or she is not quite qualified, to be to work on for my enterprise. And this person needs some probably upskilling training. Who does this training?
Well, the person who runs the tank is a very knowledgeable individual, and if they can handle that situation, they certainly can be a truck driver for that company. They certainly can work in the manufacturing component. They certainly can take orders quite well and direct orders in life and death situations. That employer is not being frank and not being honest with you, and they need to be challenged. And if for them to hire a 20-year-old that has not been in the military versus a 20-year-old that has served your country in this most difficult time of its history, that's the person you want on your team, because they will be a team player and they will help make you successful. And it sounds like you may have a challenge in that area, and so do we at times. But again, what military veterans have gone through and their families have gone through is as significant a challenge in your country as anything else that goes on. So it's a matter of educating them. And I think all of you can do that. And we're here to help you achieve that goal. We want Ukraine to be a country similar to America, where you have freedom, where you have choice, where you can work where you want to work, and you have employers that truly understand the value of a veteran.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great answer. And
Elena, can I?
Go ahead, Jack. I was going to add something to that, but if you want to go first, Jack, go ahead.
If I may. Again, I agree with what Jack Wagner was saying. A lot of times we'll run into an employer where the veteran just falls a tad short on the expectations of what the employer needs. At that point, we go on the offensive with the employer, have the discussion like Jack Wagner just mentioned, and help them to understand the importance of hiring for attitude and potential, because skills can be trained on the job. However, getting the best person on the job, and you can't train for attitude, you can't train for potential, you have to hire the right person, and then you have the opportunity of building them up. And then Jim, I assume you're going to talk about other training opportunities that are outside of the employer's qualification and skill sets.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So you mentioned upskilling. That's a very common thing for us in Voc Rehab. If you don't have the skill or the ability, the employer wants something. A lot of times they want certifications, some short-term training. Many universities, community colleges here offer short-term courses, like a little diploma program, a certification program, kind of get you specialized. I tell you where I see that a lot in the computer field. They want different certifications. We have numerous jobs in software, computers, and a lot of times they want, even though you have that experience in the service, they want certification. Now, we have, fortunately, one of the things we have here and given access to all veterans through Syracuse University is a program called Onward to Opportunity. They offer free upskilling training in a ton of fields, project management, CNC training, drafting, social services. Where the veteran does not pay for the program, they can go get certified. They can become a project manager, get a PMP certification, have the training done online, have the test paid for, get the certification. So what the two Jacks were mentioning is hiring that employee to a position and then making available to them the upskilling using like Onward to Opportunity. We also have a fantastic university and college system. We have community colleges here, which are accessible to the communities, the counties where people live. They have certification, they have short-term training program, apprenticeship. So if you need to get those types of things to upskill to match a qualification an employer says you need, we have places that we can refer them to. That can be all the way up to the university level. In fact, many of our universities today, the 4 years, the ones that offer masters, they are offering these, let's call it upskilling. Like a big one now is lean management. They call it Six Sigma. We have universities like Purdue, University of Penn, which are 4-year colleges. You don't have to be a student, where you can go and take that training as a veteran. You can take it even if you're not a veteran, but there's accessible services. I try to guide them if they encounter these issues coming into the office and, hey, maybe it's something in education. I can look that information up. I can understand what they're saying. If the employer says, hey, we need this certification, I can look that up. I understand what that is. Again, some of those systems I mentioned when I was talking to the other lady on there, we were talking about the ONET. There's a whole system on that with some links to different certifications, where you get them, who has them. It's all in that summary. So that can be helpful. You just have to point the person there. And like the other two gentlemen mentioned, you have to also tell the employer, hey, look, we don't have that skill, but we're going to get it. Here's where we're going. I often tell people, don't be afraid to stick something like that on your resume. I have a lady that's was a police officer, and she's going to school for cybersecurity. She wants to go in a completely different direction. I said, well, put that on your resume that you're studying cybersecurity. And she said, well, I've gotten some hits on that. So she's studying it. She doesn't have the degree yet, but an employer could hire her knowing that she'll get that. So you've got a lot of different resources of where to go. And I'm sure you have an education and college system and probably apprenticeship training of some sort in your country. You probably have all those same services. It's just a matter of knowing where to go.
We do. The problem actually, you have to pay for this. Now government is considering to make it free, for veterans, or with some big discounts.
Well, I think that's what what Jack Lyden was mentioned when he said about working for the VA. The VA has something called Chapter 31. Those are veterans with significant barriers. They can come in and get their education plan done, their training plan, paying for all of that. And they also, our veterans here also have access, if they're not with a disability, to the GI Bill. We have something called the GI Bill, where that provides them with access to pay for training based on their years of service. And they can get free training. They just have to put in that I was in the service and apply. It's called used to be called the Montgomery GI Bill. They might have dropped Montgomery, but it's another benefit that our veterans have. And those might be some programs for you to look into if you're going to set up some kind of structure to offer that. You'd probably have to go to the VA to learn about that, but would you like me to send some information to you about those?
We would appreciate.
Okay, I think that's what you're at. Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
And probably the last question for me, because I don't want to keep you so late. How do you think you could be, I don't like this word, useful. How would you think you would be significantly useful for Ukraine now?
Well, if the questions that you seem to ask today, and all of us have answered those based on what we do together. I mean, for me, I'd be happy to provide you with some information on, assessments, how we do transitions, kind of like the forms. If you want to call me on the phone or do a Zoom call and ask me specific questions once you have the information, I'd be happy to kind of just give you, we do different things at Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. I just strictly do the vocational rehab, which involves all of us working together. But maybe, I took a lot of notes on questions you asked, what kind of forms you wanted, what's the other, her name's not up there anymore. So it might've been Elena was talking to me as well. I think that's her right name. If I'm wrong, or Anna, but she was asking me about how you do it and the forms and I can provide some of that information as to what we do that might help you in the same vein.
It will.
Okay.
Yeah, we are an advocate for you, and in whatever way we can do that, we will. Just tell us. We're very proud of you. We're very proud of the people that serve your country and the families behind it. And all of you are really a defining country right now in the history of the world. And we want to see you be successful.
Thank you so much. Oh, I see some questions in the chat. Okay, in the chat, the question was, how long does it take for veterans to make decision between having request and make decision? It's Svetlana Root.
Yes, actually, it was. Hello. Yes, actually, it was my question. I was curious about how long does it take for him, like, I'm veteran, I want to have some job, and how long does it take? I just bring some request paper on paper, pass some self-assessment, then, for example, interview face-to-face, and after I get some like kind of job offers. Is it one process during one day, or does it take for about a week or longer? Or that do they change? What is the structure of the process?
So every veteran, of course, is different. We'll get some veterans in who are skilled job seekers. They just need some assistance in identifying employers who are looking for them. They have a resume that's drummed up. They're all good to go. That's a 2-day project to get them set up, review resume, make sure they have interview skills, and get them referred to some employers. One of the things that we also do here is once a veteran applies to an employer, we call that employer and advocate to hire that veteran. So we work both sides of the fence there. Most organizations do not do that, but we have relationships with the employers we work with. Now, some veterans will come in, and this seems to be the focus of your all concern, is the veteran who you come across maybe in the community that says, yes, I think I would like to find a job. So we have a lot of challenges there. There's motivational challenges, there's goal challenges, there's readiness challenges. You've got a lot of stuff going on there. And it's a step-by-step process, and it's the time it takes is going to be relative to their motivation, how they stay on task. We have worked with some veterans who will meet 2 times. We'll look at goals. We'll start working on a resume, and then we now hear from them for 2 months. There's nothing you can do about that. They've got to want it more than we want it for them. But the perfect world, the system would be sit down with the veteran, talk about goal setting. If they are unfamiliar with what they want to do, then we can point them towards an assessment. It can take them 2 hours to complete. So this could be done in 1 day. Then we get back, we look at the outcomes of the assessment and start talking specifics and set goals. Work on resume. A week and a half to 2 weeks, the veteran could be engaging with employers on a regular basis and lining up job interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So it could, this could happen in a matter of days, weeks. It's important that the veteran is persistent, and it's important that the advocate supporting the veteran is bold enough to reach out to the employer and promote the veteran with the employer. We want the employer to give a veteran who genuinely is looking for a job an interview, because an interview, I think, is a very important component of the hiring process.
So in any case, request means that you meet with the veteran face to face. It's not just some distant self-assessment test where he's there motivated, he filled in the test, and this test goes directly to employer. Anyway, you communicate within there is person who communicates. Yes. So
we are working back toward a larger proportion of face-to-face communication. COVID taught everybody that they can stay home and do their business online and by phone. And we still do not see a lot of foot traffic coming back to our office. So if we need to do an assessment, I've actually done assessment. I've referred the veteran to the career scope assessment. He did it, emailed me the results. I assessed his outcome, and then we had the opportunity to sit down and go over the results face to face. So it's a struggle to get face to face with people since we all went through COVID. But as often as we can, yes, that is so important to be able to look someone in the eye and read them and determine, are they sure?
Yeah, for
Thank
instance,
you.
Jack and myself are going to a local university in a couple hours where a number of students who are veterans are seeking employment. So we can have some human interaction with them, encouragement, advice, counsel, etc. So reaching out to them also, groups of veterans, and communicating with them is very important.
Okay, thank you.
And also I have a question coming to me. What are the probably largest challenges your organization is facing working in this area?
What are our challenges?
Yeah, actually.
Well, our challenges, and Jim certainly knows them, and Jack certainly knows the challenges. They can be of a wide variety. And Jack just mentioned one of them, the fact that we haven't been face to face with veterans. And obviously you can read and understand a person's needs better if you're communicating directly with them. The same with an employer. We have some employers that hire our veterans at a far greater pace than others. Why? Because they have gotten good employees from us. And they want to continue to get additional good employees. So all those factors, the human factors of of keeping lines of communication open in as many directions as possible, including with other veteran organizations, collaborating with them to help a veteran in whatever capacity we can, working with them, we want to do. This is all about helping the veteran and helping the family in as many ways as possible, but our focus is employment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elena, I will also throw in one of the biggest challenges that we face is having the time to give the personal attention to every veteran that we serve. As Atlanta mentioned, the face-to-face communication, it's very important, but even if you're not face-to-face, doing what we say we're going to do for the veteran, speaking with the employer on behalf of the veteran, calling back and communicating with the veteran, each individual requires detailed attention, and we work with a lot of veterans. So just the sheer volume of people we work with can be a real challenge. Case management takes time, and trying to do more than you can do actually works against you. So biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges I feel we faced is just having the time to work directly with the veterans and to give them the appropriate amount of attention.
And if I could just add the one last item, we're a small organization, but we're fortunate to have good people like Jack and Jim, and a couple others, Michelle, Chris, and so Brian, and I mean, we have a small group, but we have a very effective group.
How many of you, by the way? How many of you?
Our organization has 5 people that work there. 2 are part-time, or excuse me, 2 are full-time and 3 are part-time.
And for example, how many visitors, how many veterans can you serve per week, say?
On average, we help 2 to 3 veterans a week find employment. And we probably, Jack would know this better than I, we're probably communicating with 30 or 40 veterans a week. You know, is that a good number, Jack?
Yes, it is. I personally have 7 veterans in my current caseload who I'm working with, amongst all the other, I work a lot with employers. I work with a lot of different areas. Our employment representative has about 25 to 30 veterans that he's working with on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it must be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions? Colleagues, are there any questions?
No. No.
So thank you so much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure meeting you. It was a pleasure talking to you, learning from you. I look forward to receiving all the information you promised and even more. I think it will come to your mind later. And we would appreciate the ability, the possibility to talk to you, probably to give you a call to discuss the questions. I'm sure we will come up with those questions. And also, you also please feel free to contact us.
Well, we thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, if you have some other forms or some stuff that we talked about, the assessments and that, I wrote a lot of notes, but if anybody listening in wants something specific, I heard questions on different types of assessments, different things. I wrote a lot of notes, but if there's something specific that someone wants, Alexandra, could you email that to me? I'll be happy to answer that.
And I just want to add, thank you for having us with you today. We wish you well in what you're doing. We wish your country well. We're praying and hoping that everything goes right and that all of you in a short time going forward can truly focus on that employment initiative and nothing else. So we wish you well, and we're here to help.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to add,
Great.
I wanted to add one more thing. There was some mention of different types of occupations. If you wanted to share those with me, maybe I could help you with some of the transition stuff that goes along with it and the types of skills I look at. If you wanted to share some of those with me, I'd like to take a look at them and maybe see what, how they match up in your economy and kind of share my thoughts back, if you would like me to do that.
Thank you.
Okay,
That would work.
okay.
Okay, take care.
And a good time for coffee, gentlemen.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity to pitch in with y'all. If there's anything we can do to help go forward, I've included my email address in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Take care, folks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
Thank
you all.
you.
Take
Thank you so
care.
much. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Goodbye.